Hello everyone and welcome to the 4th episode of Pointers with the Pros. My name's Jeff Jenkins.
And I'm Kaylin Starr, and today we are chatting again with Mike Ritz, who was on the last episode. So if you didn't see episode 3, make sure to check that out now so you have more information on Mike and his company, Alaska Marine Coatings.
Yes, on the last episode, Mike talked about when he first integrated Dustless blasting machine into his business and how he hasn't dry blasted since. He purchased the DB500 back in 2013.
Yeah, since then, Mike has taken on massive projects year after year in Alaska, restoring large tugs, barges, and fishing vessels. While all of these projects are extremely impressive, most of you were mostly impressed by him blasting in freezing temperatures in Alaska.
That's right, Mike is here on today's episode to walk you through how he manages to wet blast in freezing weather. Let's take a look.
I remember when I got into that first one, and it was a real, we got up to Prudhoe Bay June 15th. You could see all 4 seasons in one day on the North Slope, right? So then you got, you start pulling the trigger and ice is coming out of the dustless blaster and freezing to the surface of the vessel. There was a learning curve there to use this, and our busiest time in year, because all these boats will come out of the water October, November, around December, the first of the year. That's our busy time, December through June, and then the ice gets out of the rivers and the slope, and then they all go back in the water. So a lot of times my wife and I are running operations, and it could be anywhere from 35 degrees Fahrenheit to -5 degrees Fahrenheit with a blizzard and 30-mile-an-hour winds. That's our everyday go-to-work weather.
That is absolutely insane. What have you figured out that works well for you to be able to blast in those conditions?
So we're, obviously to do a 200-foot barge or a tug, in Prudhoe Bay or many places in Alaska, you have to contain. So we've with 6-ply reinforced poly, and just to put the coating application on, you have to have the environmentals, dew point, surface temperature, relative humidity. So we would build a containment, and then we pump hot air in with 500,000 BTU frost fighter, various heaters, right? Sometimes, if I was in a dry environment, the winds can get incredibly horrible up on the North Slope. I've stuck heat tubes down into the voids of the vessel and heated the boat from the inside out so that I got a decent surface temperature with no dew point. And of course I keep the dustless blaster media and the fugitive water from freezing to the side of the boat, right? Because that's kind of hard to clean ice off the side of a boat. Another thing we do here, we've stopped traveling as much the last 2 years because we had guys on the slope, Dutch Harbor, Alaska, Alameda, California, Tacoma, Washington, all at the same time. It was just a nightmare. I have a little utility trailer, and what we've done is, we do insulation, ceramic thermal insulation. So we insulated that trailer. We heat it with a Chinese diesel heater, and then if the weather is severe, we've literally wrapped that 100 feet of dustless blast line with heat tape.
That is crazy. So Mike also recommended that you switch to electric controls if you know you're going to be blasting in freezing temperatures, because pneumatics will typically freeze. If you've already purchased a blast pot from us that's pneumatic and would like to switch over to electric, visit our online store where we sell electric control boxes.
Yeah, that's right. And we also have a bunch of tutorial videos in our academy as well as on our YouTube channel on how to set up your electric control box. If you haven't yet purchased a machine from us, make sure to specify with your salesman that you would like to get electric control box with your blast pot.
Now, a lot of you wanted us to dive deeper into Mike's cleanup methods, and I'm sure most of you can imagine that cleaning up after blasting a 300-foot barge might be a little overwhelming, but actually, since transitioning from a traditional sandblaster to a dustless blaster, Mike has cut his media use by 80%, which majorly saves him on the cleanup.
We want you to keep in mind that Mike is having to set up containment for every project he does due to the pristine location that he's blasting in. Also the freezing temperatures we just discussed. However, Mike really wanted you guys to know that every single project he does is different, but for the most part, here is what his cleanup process looks like.
To clean up, you have to get it tested for heavy metals, organic composite from a lab. And that's another, good point. How'd you like to clean up dry media underneath the bottom of a 300 by 100 foot barge? Imagine how much sand that would be on your hands and knees. What we do is that 6-ply reinforced poly will do the whole underside of the barge. And a lot of times when they haul these barges out, they do it on airbags. We're in the wild, wild west up here. When we're done with the job, we take the containment down. We tie a corner of that 6-ply reinforced poly onto the back of a truck or a loader and pull it out from underneath the barge and sweep it up, put it in a super sack and send it home.
So let's dive a little deeper into this, because as Jeff mentioned before, no project is the same, right? Every job has different shapes and sizes, but not only that, Mike is dealing with other challenges in Alaska. Like when he flies into a remote location that has very limited materials and resources. And like, for example, he actually told me that lumber is really expensive there, so that's not an option for him. So Mike said the cleanup method he usually uses depends on where they are.
For example, if they aren't blasting in a super remote area and a vector vac is available, they rent that and vacuum up the spent media and put it into a super sack. If renting out one of those isn't an option, the 6-ply reinforced poly is so durable, they said that you can tie it to a truck and just drag it out from underneath the boat or the project that they're working on and put it right into a super sack.
But going back to the idea that every job is different and might require a different containment method, Mike said that the first barge he ever did on the Arctic slope had to be contained, and the wind was blowing over 40 miles an hour for 4 days in all directions. So they ended up renting 10 semis to circle the barge to block the wind. They're constantly thinking outside the box.
That's so crazy. We know most of you want one direct answer or protocol on how to do every job, but truthfully, you will have to assess the needs of every project depending on what it is and what area you're in and what machine you have.
Yeah, and the next piece of advice that Mike just said was absolutely crucial if you're wanting to take on these big industrial or commercial jobs was to learn the SSPC standards.
Mike uses these basic surface preparation standards to communicate with his potential customers or to bid on jobs. So let's see what he has to say about it.
These guys really need to get into like what the surface preparation standards are to get into those bigger jobs. They need to know what an SP6, SP5, SP7, SP11, SP, that's important. That's how I bid my jobs. It's all off of square footage. And, of course there's formulas to calculate how much media with how many CFS, so it's 30 years is going through my head from watching one video of yours, and I think it is a good opportunity. But I think those of us that are blasting, we need to be responsible, so that it doesn't get over-regulated and too difficult for somebody to be a small startup. Whenever that we do paint on a certified job that requires documentation and certified inspections, every step of the way we go through, we take what the anchor profile is after we blasted, the cleanliness, what the environmentals are, and we shoot, and then in between each coat we're milling, how thickness our coating is, and the customer signing off. And so it's kind of like a joint effort. I have the certifications. If I need like inspections for coatings or surface preparation, then usually I'll subcontract an independent NACE level 3 coatings inspector. Okay. And then they handle that. Like on the bigger jobs, like if we get into like a Coast Guard job or whatever, you have to, because they won't let you go any further without those criteria met. And the gentleman before me, he made a lot of, as far as estimates and bids, there's a lot of important points that he made. But I think that first and foremost, we're at a time right now where we've got to protect industry in the United States, right? There are a lot of people that don't like industry, and do a little research as far as cleanup, disposal, how you represent yourself, learn the vocabulary, protect this. We're getting clobbered in the United States with, industry, with manufacturing, overseas. So we've got to protect industry in the United States. And, with dustless blasting, and that's an opportunity for people to go out there and make a business for themselves, maybe have employees. We got to protect our industry.
And for those of you who are new to the surface preparation industry, the SSPC and the National Association of Corrosion Engineers, or NACE, has established different degrees of blast surface cleanliness. Understanding these standards will help you provide the best surface prep for your customers and help you keep your costs down.
That's right. For example, a car body and a dump truck bed won't require the same level of cleanliness. So when someone refers to an SP5 blast, it's important to know as a blaster that they're referring to a white metal blast. That means it's free of all visible paint, rust, mill scale stains, and any other foreign objects.
That's right, and we have tons of information about these surface preparation standards in our Dustless Blasting Academy, so make sure to check that out. Or feel free to go directly to sspc.org to take e-courses and find in-depth information that could help you on certain jobs. And we will link all of that below in the description.
Well, that's all we have for today. Remember to go check out episode 3 of Pointers with the Pros if you haven't already. Mike will be back with us on episode 5 to go over a few smaller blasting topics that you guys won't want to miss.
Thanks so much for joining us. Please let us know if you have any questions by leaving a comment below, or check out dustlessblasting.com to learn more. And as I said earlier, in the description we have all the links to the electrical control box hookup and all the stuff that we mentioned in this episode.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time.